Hi everybody, this is Anne. Since I purchased my mandala ball tool set, I find that I've been using those tools on my pottery in so many more ways than I could have imagined. I've shown you a few of those ways, as highlighted in previous videos. Applying underglaze using the dot shapes and the mandala patterns is so beautiful and mesmerizing. I thought that since many holiday shapes are also round and symmetrical, I'd try to pair them up and see what happens. Making non-functional pieces also gives me a chance to try out the oven-baked ceramic paints. I bet you've seen them in the craft store. I'll test them out and give you my opinion and tips on using them as well. Constructing the ornament was very simple. I rolled out a 1/4-inch slab of clay and ribbed it smooth. I have a variety of cookie cutter shapes and chose a few symmetrical holiday shapes as I want to hang these on the tree for the holidays. For the cleanest cuts, I like to place a piece of plastic wrap over the clay, then cut out the shapes. The plastic pulls the clay edges downward so they're not as sharp and makes for quick release of the cutter. Now I can peel away the plastic and easily peel away the excess clay. If you want to hang the ornament, you can cut a hole in the top of the ornament, or to preserve the decorating surface, you can roll a small coil, bend it around, and cut the ends to fit the edges of the ornament, then score, slip, and attach a hook. When the piece was bone dry, I could map out where to place the dots. I first marked the centers of all the corners around the perimeter with a pencil. Using a small ruler, I connected all the opposing dots. Make sure your pencil's nice and sharp. Now let's map out where all the dots go. I highlighted the very center spot, then began to create patterns of dots in circular patterns around the center. Remember that using a variety of sized dots and marks makes for a more interesting design. Here are the ball tools that I'll be using. These tools are quite affordable. There's a link in the description section if you're interested in purchasing them. I'll be using black underglaze to work with as it's the most contrasting color, but any color will really work. I started with a bigger dot for the center of the snowflake to draw attention to it. I used the same size tool to create sliding marks along the outer edges. These will point your eye towards the edges and back again to the center point. Switching to the smaller ball tool, I created smaller marks around the center mark. Using an even smaller one, I created another ring around that center. I chose a bit bigger tool for another pass towards the outer snowflake arms. With an even smaller tool, I dotted around each of the outer dots. Now I'm going to switch to a cold baby blue underglaze to highlight some of the dots. Using the tiny ball tools, I made dots and marks to layer the first sets. I then used the black again for even tinier contrasting highlights. I bisque fired the piece and really liked the matte surface. Without adding any glaze to it, I simply high fired it for this finished ornament. Now let's do a 2-color mandala. On the bone dry ornament, I mapped out my space with a pencil. This time, I'll be using Amico blush along with the black. I used a small brush to fill in my center points, black in the center and blush in the octagon shape. Using a ball tool, I pulled marks in the center points around the perimeter. With that same tool, I pulled more marks from the center perimeter down around the first marks. Then I made a second set of marks around that first set. I used a smaller ball tool to dot the exclamation points and pull more marks with the same tool in between those sets. I then dotted the inside of the pink octagon. For even more contrast, I thought I'd use the blue as some of the dots too. I then used the blush to highlight the dotted ends of the marks. Now here's the finished version of the same ornament. I bisque fired it and liked it so much without the glaze, I just high fired it. I thought it'd be fun to decorate the star ornament. Again, I mapped out the surface design with a pencil. I started this project like the last one by painting the focal star point, then I dotted some areas around the center with different sized tools. I then marked the areas along the star arms and added a few more dots around those. Once I was happy with the design, I bisque fired it. Now I could add clear glaze over the top once bisqued, but I'm going to want to use ceramic paint for the next step, and it doesn't stick well to the glazed surface without chipping off, so I high-fired the ornament without glaze. Since this project is sculptural and not functional, I'll be able to test out these Pebeo ceramic metallic paints on it. To the newly high-fired ornament, I added gold to the center of some of the dots. The paint needed a bit of shaking, but it goes on smoothly and I didn't have to dilute it in water. Following the directions on the bottle, I let that dry completely, then I popped it in my vented kitchen oven at 300 degrees for about 40 minutes, letting that cool down in the oven. In case you're wondering what would have happened if I'd applied the gold and then high-fired it, the answer is that it would just burn away at the much hotter temperature. Here's another sample that I made with a heart-shaped ornament. I tried several of the metallic ceramic paints on this one for a vintage look. Here's another sample I did on a blown-up ornament. I love how this one came out. If you want to see how I made it, check out the short video we did on that very topic. I purposely only decorated the fronts, as I can still use the ceramic paint to personalize it with a greeting or someone's name, etc. But as we're not glazing these, you can also decorate the backs of the ornaments with underglaze without it sticking to the kiln shelf when fired. Now all I need to do is thread the hook with a nice gold string or ribbon, and they'll make beautiful Victorian holiday ornaments. Thanks to the newest members of our Little Street Pottery Research Facility team. If you'd like to join the team and earn a title, click on the Super Thanks button or the link to buy me a coffee. In any case, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time in the studio.